All right, a happy Sunday morning to everyone out there. Hopefully, everyone is safe with this weather that's going on throughout the whole United States, and it is certainly chilly out there. It's even chilly down here in Florida for Florida standards. So we're gonna do, we started doing these trade guide videos. We started with the Lakers. Lakers is out on YouTube. I was going to do Atlanta today, just based on what's happened Friday and Saturday, and then we've got a minor trade Sunday morning that Woj had broken between Detroit and the Wizards. As you know, I'm staying away from saying Washington and the Wizards. So I figured we could do a little bit of a trade recap. It's more of it's a financial based decision. This is not a basketball trade, and then also tie in the Pistons and the Wizards trade guide video into this video here. And I think that's kind of the goal here. Instead of doing separate videos, I finished the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference trade guides Saturday night. We've got 20,000 words, about 9,000 each, 9 and change. Those will come out the week of the 22nd separately. So we can go through that. We can do a little bit of the semantics of the trade. This is purely a financially driven trade. Whenever you're 3-30 or whatever the records the Pistons are, and you're attaching the goal usually isn't to attach draft picks if you're 3-30. The goal is to take back draft picks and shed your contracts. Detroit basically has done the opposite, and a big reason why is if you're not going to trade Bogdanovic, and we'll see what happens, or at least right now, Bogdanovic and Alec Burks, and you're not going to move any of your young players, who on your roster actually has value, right? I'm not talking about Cade or Jalen Duren or Jaden Ivey. And I don't think Killian Hayes has much value here. Who on your roster actually has much value? And I don't think you can make an argument for anybody there. And that's why you're looking to move off the Bagley contract, who's under contract this year for $12.5. He's got a $12.5 million salary next year. That comes off your books now. That goes to the Wizards. And then you have to attach two seconds. We'll see what the seconds are. It's in 25 and 26. The Pistons had 7 going into today. Now that's down to 5. Remember, they owe New York a first. That's got some heavy protection. Don't worry, Detroit fans. It's not going to carry over this year because it's I think it's top 18 protected. It's protected for basically the next 3 years here. So there's a chance you retain that. But what the difficulty part is, when you protect the pick that far out, it makes it very challenging if you ever wanted to move a first down the road, and you do not have first from other teams. You had that first from Portland, and you drafted Jalen Duren, which was certainly a good deal. So it sets you up with certainly you have 64 million, somewhere in that range, whatever the draft pick gets factored in. So it sets you up with potentially $60 million in cap space in an average free agent class here. So if you're not going to move off contracts and draft picks unless you have an idea as far as what players you want to go out and get. And certainly it's setting up for where you're not going to go out and kick the can on cap space like you did this past offseason when you traded for Joe Harris and Monty Morris, and basically those two players went into the $30 million in your room. You're basically raising raising the flag, the cap space flag, and saying, you know what, we're going to be a major player this offseason here. We've got $60 million in room. We've got as much room as any team out there, cite for Philadelphia and teams like that. We're going to be major players. Who's the major player? Are we going to go out and overpay players? And listen, having been in an organization in New Jersey after the 09-10 season, we won 12 games, and back then we had $35 million in cap space, which in this day and age is like 70. And you thought you can go out and be a big player. I mean, goodness, we almost went out and paid Carlos Boozer 5 years, $90 million, which would have been a train wreck. And we almost went out and paid Tyrus Thomas 4 years, $30 million, which would have been another train wreck. And then I always joke that we paid the law firm of Outlaw, Farmar, and Morrow and Petro. So you have to be careful with cap space because you're always in a position that you're going to be overpaying. Now, if you're thinking, I'm going to be like what Houston did. What Houston was able to do is a rarity. They went out and got Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks and Jeff Green, and they had all this cap space, and they went from a 22-win team to all of a sudden this this team that's competing for a play-in or a playoff spot. Then that's the blueprint here, but that blueprint doesn't always happen. So for the Pistons, that's what you're setting yourselves up for. As I said, you don't trade draft assets when you're 3-30 to get rid of contracts unless you know what you want to do for the offseason here. It's reckless here, and we'll see what happens. As far as the Pistons, let's just go for the trade first, and then I'll get into Detroit and Washington a little bit for the trade guy. As far as the trade, it's pretty cut and dry. Now, Bagley was at 12.5. Isaiah Livers was at 1.8. Gallinari is at 6.8. Muscala was at 3.5. Everybody on there except for Gallinari is on except for Bagley is on expiring contracts. Who knows what happens with Gallinari if he gets bought out? He's not the same player like he was before the injury. He's almost like a stretch 5 right now. We'll see. He can be bought out of his contract, and he can sign because his salary is below the non-tax mid-level. He can go sign with teams that are in the apron. There's no restrictions on that. We'll see what happens with him and Muscala, potentially two vet players that could be out there. Their contracts cannot be aggregated. It's a cut and dry trade. The likelihood is that I don't want to go into salary cap main gymnastics, but Washington had a trade exception of like 12-3 from the Porzingis trade. The likelihood is that Bagley goes into that. They create another trade exception. So from a trade exception standpoint, it looks like Detroit will create 2 at 2.2 and 1.8. Washington will create 2 at 6.8 and 1.6. All 4 players that were acquired in the trade can't be aggregated. For the Wizards, listen, hey, if cap space, they potentially could have had it, but they're not in this phase of doing that. Like since the offseason, Michael Winger, their new GM, 1 first, 8 seconds, and 4 swaps. Like that's how, and I get it. They're 6 and whatever, maybe 7 after that win in Atlanta, and that's another story for another day. We were gonna, as I said, we're gonna do a trade video for them, and we'll maybe do that on Monday. But they've built up a nice equity of draft assets, and they're another team that owes New York a protected first here. They've got a 2030 first from Golden State that protected. So they've got 15 seconds in their kitty available for them. And taking on the extra year of Bagley's salary was worth it if you can get two twos, which they certainly did. So that's kind of the semantics from a trade standpoint here. I don't want to really go much. I mean, if we were doing a video just on that, it would be 2 minutes. I mean, basically, it's boom, boom, boom. The salary is how it works. You can acquire within $7.5 million. That's the buffer, right? If it's over $7.5 million in salaries going out. But there's some trade exceptions that were created, as I mentioned. Now, for the Wizards, for their trade guide, and I'm going to pull it up here, my big thing for Washington, it's not Kyle Kuzma. It's not Daniel Gafford. It's really going to be, and why I say that is Kuzma's on a great contract, right? Kuzma's on one of the, listen, it's at 25 and change. I'm just pulling it up right now. It is at 25.6 this year, but it descends. In this day and age of the salary cap, 25.6, 23.5, 21.5, and 19.4, it's averaging 22.4 and shooting a career high 46 from 3. You don't just, eventually you need players on your roster that can help you. And that's one of those contracts, those $20 million guys he has more value out there, as I said, than Siakam and Levine, those $25 million guys. I don't see anything happen with him. Same with Daniel Gafford, having a great year. First year of that extension. 3-year, $40 million extension, ranked 7th in block shots. Why are you going to get rid of him? So I don't see Washington moving off either player unless multiple ones, a lot of ones are coming their way. And as I said, like eventually, like you have to have players that can help you. Like it's not just about building up your draft equity here. The person that I have my eye on in Washington is Tyus Jones. Okay? You went out and you traded for Jones in the offseason as part of the Smart and Porzingis trade. Veteran guard. Last year of his contract at $14 million. He has a tremendous amount of value to playoff teams out there. I mean, we can go through the list, whether it be Miami, whether it be Minnesota, whether it be Phoenix. He has value out there. He's got value because his bird rights transfer. So if you're a team like the Heat, who's financially over the cap next year, you can go out and try to re-sign him. Same with Minnesota, who's got some financial issues next year. The Suns also. 1 point, he's never averaged more than 1 point turnovers in his career. Okay? Ranks first among all players in assist to turnover ratio this year. A veteran point guard, and I know you can make the argument that he was not good last year in the playoffs in the Memphis series, and his playoff record is spotty, but probably the best available point guard out there that has been in big games and that can start or come off the bench. That is the player to keep an eye on when we're talking about trade perspective with the Wizards. They also have DeLon Wright, who's on an expiring contract. They've got some other salary, certainly with Landry Shamet, who's got a partial guarantee for next year here. So for the Wizards, we always go through this, like the one trade I put in here. I don't really like doing it because I don't want to be like some other outlets here where I'm just having clickbait trades and stuff like that. But for them, like I would trade Tyus Jones to Miami for Duncan Robinson in the 2028 first. That's top 10 protected. Like that's the type of deal, because then you add another draft asset to that. That's just me. I'm not saying that's going to happen. You've got some trade exceptions certainly that you have available. You're in a position to go out and be sellers, but bring back draft picks. For the Pistons, I mentioned their cap space. Are you willing to go out and kind of be are you willing to be an Andrew Wiggins kind of dump team? What is Monty Morris and Alec Burks for Andrew Wiggins? Does that do anything for me, or are you set just kind of riding into the offseason with $60 million in cap space? But 12-minute video on the Wizards Pistons trade. We've tied in both their trade guides as far as what to watch. We will do these more this week, which is Monday. Trade aggregate restrictions get lifted on January 15th. Trade guides come out next week. We've got rookie rankings come out on Monday. Enjoy your Sunday. Enjoy the late games, the 4:30 and the 8 o'clock games for the NFL. And we will talk soon.